Hello everyone, this is going to be one of those WTF videos that I make. And this one's going to be what in the hell happened to Christmas movies. So before I get into it, let me just kind of tell you a little bit of a little tiny story. So, the holiday's about over right now. But I remember at the beginning, like me and my fiance, we kind of like, we'll binge watch, like maybe binge watch just holiday specials and movies. Like typically we do it like right at the beginning, like we do it for like a weekend right at the beginning, and then we'll like do it again like in the middle of the whole holiday season, or towards the middle or towards the middle end. We'll do it again. So we're binge watching stuff. Here are these stop motion, Home Alone, Scrooge, Christmas Carol. We're doing all these things, right? And then I kind of get hit with this realization, and I'm just like, huh. And I turn to my fiance and I say, you know, just like this, we really haven't had a classic Christmas movie come out in a very long time. And so just think about it. Just really think about it. Like all the things we're watching are about 20 years old and over. Pretty much like 20 years or over 20 years old. And I thought like you can't really think of anything recently that you would consider a classic. That when the holidays come rolling around, or like if you just have like this urge to watch a Christmas movie, typically I get like at least the urge around like the warmer months, like around late spring, early summer to watch a Christmas movie. You don't really think to put anything on that's recent, that's like within the past 5 or 10 years. It's all movies that are 20 years old and up. And she looked at me, she was like, "Yeah, you're right. There hasn't been anything." And that's where this movie comes to play. Where I got the inspiration. I was like, what the hell happened with Christmas movies? Like we really haven't got anything that we would consider a classic in a very long time, in at least 20 years. Like there hasn't been. I can't really think of anything in the 2010s. I mean, you could maybe you could say Daddy's Home too, but if you're gonna watch like on a Christmas time, your first thought isn't to put in Daddy's Home too. You don't even that doesn't even cross your mind. It doesn't cross your mind to put in the Grinch that came out in 2018. It's either Jim Carrey or the animated version. That doesn't cross your mind. The animated one that came out in 2018. And you just gotta figure out like what happened. Like and it feels like around the mid 2000s, not 2020s, the mid 2000s to like the late 2000s, that it just kind of stopped. Like we just kind of got nothing, and it continues to this day. That's what it really feels like. I mean, the last one I could really think of would be Elf, maybe Bad Santa. Maybe you can make the argument for Last Holiday, but that's really it. You know what I mean? There really hasn't been that classic, and somewhere around that point, it just done. And it's hard to figure out like what are the reasons. And here are some of the reasons I think it is that this has happened, where it's just dead. One, streaming. Like this is around the time that streaming started coming about, like in the late 2000s, and then it was in full swing like by the mid 2010s, like 2015, 20. That's when it kind of really rose to prominence. But it was kind of just streaming was just starting out now. And quite frankly, it hasn't just changed the dynamic for Christmas movies, but it's changed the dynamic in the entire movie industry. Where now movies that were made for theaters are now made for streaming. Movies that would have came out in theaters come out on a streaming platform now. Whereas it's not just that too, but whereas streaming you can choose whatever the hell you want to watch. Whereas before, here's a television, you don't really get a choice. Whatever is on is what you're going to watch, unless you own a DVD or a VCR or like a Blu-ray. You didn't have the choices that we have now, and so part of me thinks that maybe some good movies have come out, but they really haven't gotten recognition because they've been buried on some streaming platform. But yeah, I think streaming is a big thing. I think too is the Christmas movies have kind of become like these niche category now. Like it really wasn't a niche category like when I was growing up and 2000, but it kind of has become this niche category where movies are specifically made for Christmas, and they're made in bulk. You know what I mean? They're not made for quality, they're made for quantity. And it's like literally it's just like, you know what I mean? They have a quota to fill, and you have to meet this X amount of quota, and they don't really care about the quality of the movie, if the movie's gonna be good. They just, here's this cookie cutter, here's this like, cookie cutter thing, this generic plot. We're not gonna put really a unique twist on it, a unique twist. We're not gonna, try to make it at least somewhat special or interesting. We're just gonna roll with it, and then turn this out, and then go to the next one. I mean, Hallmark has like the entire month, just nothing but random Christmas things that you wouldn't be able to tell the difference. Netflix had the category probably that you wouldn't be able to tell the difference. And consequently, a lot of these movies, they just end up looking the same. Like they look the same, they feel the same. You can't tell really much of any difference. But that also leads me to my third point, where when you watch these newer Christmas movies, there's just something off about them, isn't there? Like there's just it's just something off. Like it just feels unnatural. You know what I mean? And and I think the reason for that is because they're just turning them out for a quota to meet a certain deadline, a quota to get X amount of films. Okay, we're good. But I tried watching some newer Christmas movies, and like I said, they just feel off and unnatural. And I think the right word is inauthentic. Like it's just really inauthentic. There's no like earnestness or heart to these movies anymore. It just it's just instead of making a really good quality movie where they should focus on, it was just we're just gonna center this around the holiday and we're not gonna do much else. But I kind of noticed that a lot. Like when I try watching some newer Christmas movies on like some random streaming service, it just feels off. You just don't get that feeling anymore. So those are kind of the three reasons I think. I think another fourth reason would be that studios do not want to take a risk anymore. Like they don't. And and I remember watching like you could watching interviews with actors and actresses and etc. And he would pretty much say like a lot of these studios put a lot of money into movies and they're not willing to take any risk anymore. Like they want to do something that's safe. They want to do like a sequel, a prequel, something with an existing franchise, an existing IP, a superhero movie. They want to do something that they know that's it's gonna be easier to make a success rather than like a random original movie. And that's also I think coming into play as well, especially when it comes to Christmas movies, because that's like that's risky. Let's be real, it is risky to do it because it's like oh we kind of had to send it around Christmas, but we kind of need to release it around Christmas too. And a lot of these movie studios don't want to really risk anything anymore. They don't want to spend all that money on capital on this original movie about Christmas that could be really good. And so, they pass on it, and then, they kind of just, a lot of these movies that are made are kind of phoned in, made for streaming services where they look the same. You can't tell the difference between any movie. And yeah, but that's kind of what I think is happening. You know what I mean? It feels like they're made for bulk and quantity. Streaming has affected it, lack of wanting to take risk, and just I think that's really affected why we really haven't seen any classic Christmas movies in recent memory. And if there have been like movies that would be considered classic, they're buried in like some sort of streaming platform that you're never gonna see because you have options to whatever you want to watch. But that's my 2 cents. Like really, and I'm making this thing to kind of bring awareness. Really think about it. Next time, like it's like one of the warmer months, and you just kind of get this random urge to just watch a Christmas movie. Because sometimes I'll get that, like once or twice a year after Christmas, or or next holiday season. Really think about it when you're watching these movies on like a streaming service. You're putting, you maybe you have cable and you're seeing these movies. Really, I want you to really stop and think and say, huh, and really examine when were these movies made? well, when did these movies come out? And you'll realize, like I did this year, it's been about 20 something years, over 20 something years since these movies came out. Where the hell happened to these newer, fresher movies that we can consider classics? But yeah, those are my 2 cents. Just next time, really examine and think about it next holiday season when you're putting it in, just the age of these movies. And then ask, like, what in the blue hell happened to Christmas movies?